What's up, family? If it's your first time checking out the show, let me know what city, what state you're coming in from. If you're outside of the US, let me know what country you're representing. Family, if you have not done so already, which I don't know why you would not have already not done this, I need you to, after you subscribe, click on that little bell next to your subscribe button, and I need you to select notifications. Click all notifications, otherwise you may not get any. If you wanna make sure that your comment go notice, you can hop into the super chat. I am going to go in on this subject, and then I'll talk to my legal analyst, and then I'll come into the chat and see what you guys are saying. If you have any questions for Audia Jones, get them ready now, because this is going to be a heavy show going in right now. So the other three criminals who is responsible for killing George Floyd has been charged with aiding and abetting. The former Minneapolis police officer who pressed his knee in George's neck was charged with second-degree murder, and the three other officers on the scene during his killing were charged with aiding and abetting, according to court documents. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison's official announcement of the charges is expected to come later today, more than a week after George was killed while in police custody in Minneapolis. The killing sparked a national outrage and protest all over the country. There's been calls for the end of police violence against Blacks. I mean, it didn't start with the killing of George Floyd, but it did amplify. Derek Chauvin, who had his knee pressed into George's neck for nearly 9 minutes, had previously been charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter. The new second-degree murder charge says that he killed George Floyd without intent to effect the death of any person while committing or attempting to commit a felony offense, namely assault in the third degree, according to an amended complaint. This is why I need a legal expert here, family, to help me out with this, because I don't know what the hell they're talking about right there. In my mind, he guilty, it's first-degree murder, kill that punk. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, put his ass on trial, convict him, and put him on death row. It's as simple as that when it happens to us. Why is it so complicated with them? Can you, audience, first of all, welcome to the show. Can you explain to the audience, explain to me, what is going on with these charges?
Yeah, so as a former prosecutor, so I was a prosecutor in the Harris County District Attorney's Office, a lot of times what we've seen around the country, when we've seen police officers murder Black people over and over again, we see times where we have prosecutors that may overcharge and have instances where the bar is set a little too high. And it's not even so much that, but you have to take into account the people that are actually going to be sitting on the jury are regular, everyday people. So these aren't people who practice law on a day-to-day basis. These are people who are teachers, who are students, who have jobs, don't have jobs, or entrepreneurs, but they're bringing into the court system everything, every bias that they know. And we know that police officers, typically people have a tendency, if they have never been affected by that, they have a tendency to believe what the officers say. And we know it's difficult in the first place just to find an officer guilty or even indict them. And we can talk about the indictment a little bit further. But to even get past the first step of charging them, indicting them, and then subsequently finding them guilty. So I think what we have is the AG Keith Ellison, who was appointed, who is now almost playing it safe. He started off, I believe it was Derek Chauvin was charged with third-degree murder. Now it's since been bumped up to second-degree murder since they got that independent autopsy in. And what we have is we have evidence where the attorney for the Floyd family can actually argue, hey, there was an intent to actually murder him, but at the very least, we can actually show that we know he was committing assault at the time when George Floyd died, and we have an independent autopsy that supports that. So I think it's a combination of two things. Number one, it's difficult for people to even find officers guilty, period. A lot of people go in there thinking it's like a TV show, and it's not. You have regular people that come in, watch TV 14, 15 hours a day, and the first thing that they're going to do is believe what the officer testifies to.
Explain to this audience, how did we get to a point where officers basically operate under a system of almost like, where they're above the law? Like, it's so difficult to prosecute, to punish an officer who commits wrongdoing. I mean, the amount of times that they actually get reprimanded is like, I mean, like almost it's little to nothing. How did we even allow a system like this to be put in place? And who is responsible for what I understand the people sat back and allowed it to happen, but what city officials or state or government officials are responsible for co-signing this and upholding these laws where cops are not being held accountable and they're protecting these cops? Whose job is it to make sure that the citizens of this nation gets justice when police officers commit wrong?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of people usually don't know. So every state, this is police powers are governed by each state individually. So this is not a case of federal law where it's somebody like your congressional representative or a senator. A senator that's down in Washington D.C. would be responsible for this. So each state has people that are essentially responsible for holding those officers accountable. Number one, we need to look at the district attorneys. More specifically, a lot of people don't know when they hear the term district attorneys, the informal term for that is the prosecutor. They're the ones who typically accept charges, file charges, move forward with what you saw. Remember, at one point we had Derek Chauvin, who wasn't even initially charged. And then those three officers who now have been charged a week after George Floyd has died, when we know if it would have been in the reverse, he would have been charged right away. But the district attorney is typically responsible for accepting charges. Then we need to look at the police chiefs. So whoever the chief of police is for those organizations here in Houston, for anybody that's here in Houston, we have two ways that someone can actually be a police chief. We have the HPD police chief, who is actually appointed by the mayor. So he is actually not an elected official. So that position is not a position you can vote on. If you want to hold someone accountable for failing to act, you have to then hold the mayor accountable, vote, exercise your right there. And then with the sheriff's office, that is an elected position. So depending on each state, I'm not quite sure how Minnesota works, but you want to look at the district attorney, who is an elected official who gets voted on. And see why they didn't initially take the charges. The fact that they actually had to appoint a third party independent unbiased person, AG, which is the attorney general, who typically does not handle criminal cases, who has to now preside over these criminal charges. But the district attorney, the prosecutor is handling the case, and then the police chief, who seemed to act rather quickly in Minnesota and fire those officers. So,
are you fixing your mouth, or did you fix your mouth to say basically that local elections are important? Is that what you're getting to here?
Extremely important. They are probably some of the most important elections that you can ever vote on. And I'm not telling you to skip out on the president, but your local elections, your local elected officials literally determine life and death. They determine who may get life and who may get death, as we've seen in this civil unrest that's happened across the country, not just starting now, but dating back almost 400 years ago.
How frustrating is it to you as someone who is boots on the ground, so to speak, and someone who's actually ran for a public office, to see people on a local level not really interested in local government.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I understand. I think it's not. I think it's a lack of knowledge. You know, we have a lot of distractions out there. I think what COVID-19 has essentially done, even though it's almost like a gift and a curse. COVID-19 took away a lot of distractions, which are the sports games and entertainment. A lot of that stuff is fun and it's nice to escape. But so many times we are so far disconnected from understanding what controls our day-to-day lives. And once this situation happened, it was videotaped, and people don't have those outside distractions, clubs, you know, entertainment, maybe, you know, I don't know, sporting events, gatherings. It gives them more time to focus on what's going on, who failed here, who failed to act, and who's responsible for this and other incidents like this that have occurred and continue to occur even up until last night. So,
Yeah. Being a former prosecutor yourself, I'm sure you've seen dozens and dozens and dozens of cases where police officers were accused of various crimes, but you couldn't do anything about it because your hands were tied, based on the law and the powerful police union, and perhaps even the mayor's advocacy for the police unions and police officers. I mean, like, what do you do in a situation if you're a prosecutor? Because there's a number of people, and I don't want to jump around, but there's a number of people who feel like that if you're in the system, you're part of the problem, period. Doesn't matter if you're Black. They just feel like if you're in that system, if you're part of the evil empire, then you're part of the problem. They don't see the fight from the inside.
right.
How often, you know, how often have you had to actually be inside of there and fight? And how difficult is it for you to know that a police officer deserves to be punished, but he gets to skate because of his profession?
Yeah, and that's a great question. During my time at the DA's office, which was several, you know, more than a few years, I've actually gotten police officers terminated for lying. But again, that's a rare instance, and it really depends on what type of character you come in with. And it's not so much just the titles or the roles or the authority that comes along with those positions. It's the type of people that are getting those types of positions. So, you know, it's the character of the people that are coming in there. For me, I'm like, I don't care, you know, if they terminate me. If you terminate me, you're going to terminate me because I'm doing my job, and that means that I'm being fair and just to everybody. Now, I've seen it be completely swayed, and I've seen great officers, but I've seen a lot of bad officers. I've seen people come in there and they automatically will trust officers. I've had jury selections where I've actually had to get rid of potential jurors because they said as soon as a police officer gets up on the stand, they're going to believe everything they say. And remember, we're keeping in mind that we have people that are literally watching TV from 14 to 16 hours a day. And what do we see on TV? Typically, Black and Hispanic men and women are criminals. We see typically white individuals are police officers. And then we have people that conceptualize that into reality. And then they carry that into our now you know, I don't even want to call it a broken, but unjust criminal justice system that essentially developed from slave catching. But for me, it was an easy thing to do the right thing. And I had done that on a few occasions with officers who had actually lied or attempted to lie on the stand. But for others, for my colleagues, for people that I know, it is very few and far between that you will have somebody in those types of positions that do the right thing because they're afraid of losing friendships with these officers. They're afraid of being looked at as a black sheep. But again, I've always stood 10 toes down, and I never had a problem bringing whoever was doing what they weren't supposed to be doing. I had never had a problem holding them accountable.
But I just have to, if I put myself in your shoes, I'm like, man, every day I get up and I go in there, it's like I'm trying to do the right thing. I want to, my job, first and foremost, as a prosecutor, is to keep the public safe, protect the public. That's number one.
Right.
Now, but I'm going in here and do my job,
Mhm.
I'm pissing people off who are oftentimes my superiors or coworkers and who's supposed to be doing the same job. But some of these people, they don't care about justice. They just care about winning.
Correct.
How
Correct.
do you operate within a system that's about winning and not justice? A system that's supposed to be about justice,
Mhm.
but it's
Mhm.
really about winning
Right.
more so than it is about justice. So if I can win, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if I have the evidence or not. It doesn't matter if I have what you guys call PC, probable
Right.
cause.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
I think I can win, even if even if I have to win by having this person to plead on something I know that this person didn't really do, or I don't
Right.
think this person did, I'm going to give them the plea anyway. If I think I can win, I am going to push for the conviction.
Right.
That's a tough system to work in.
Mhm.
How do you encourage, but I understand that we have to have more people that looks like us judging us.
Yeah, and I would
But
even,
how
and
do
you know,
you,
I don't
but
know if
how
I
do you, but
necessarily
let me
agree
make
with that.
this, let me make this
Mhm.
point.
Okay.
How do you first and foremost
Mhm.
give people, Black people, hope that they'll be properly represented and they'll be given a fair shot? Because we ain't looking for no favors, just equality.
Yes.
And also encourage new would-be Black prosecutors to,
Yeah.
to come in and give it a shot and try to,
Mhm.
ride and fight for the people.
Yeah. So that's a great question. I think the first thing is that we, as far as giving people hope, especially Black people, with the way that we've been treated in our communities, by this criminal justice system that was really never made to protect or serve us, is to say we have to open our eyes and understand. I think, again, I hate to keep using this, but I think COVID-19 is a good time. Knowledge is power. You know, when you say this is a good time to read, to be watching YouTube videos, maybe go back and watch some of Willie D's older YouTube videos, content that talks about, who controls our criminal justice system, who runs it, who makes it run, what's the judges' roles, what's the district attorney's role, when are they up for election. And again, I think the most important thing is to make sure that people's handshake matches their smile. And maybe, Willie, you want to explain that a little bit more, but in politics, we'll see people that'll be hugging, kissing, taking pictures with the little Black babies and be like, look at this. I love y'all. And you go and you find out behind the scenes, well, you can't love us that much because your officers then killed 7 or 8 Black and Hispanic young men and women, and nothing's been done under your guidance. Or we see district attorneys that are like, hey, we're here for you. Send us some money. We'll take care of you. We'll pay for breakfast and we'll do all this. But then when you look at what their history has shown, their track record doesn't match the same thing when they've let officers off the hook for helping to kill a young Hispanic man. So those types of things, I think that's number one, is to educate yourself. Don't depend on what the media tells you. I think outlets like Willie D shows, YouTube videos, content, books are primary sources where you can get that information rather than the 99% of mainstream television that's controlled by 2% of our world's population. I think that's the first thing. The second thing, as far as getting people like me, and I hate to, I'm not trying not to take credit, but my thing is, my husband is a military veteran. My father's a military veteran. I
And
played
your
division.
husband is a judge.
He is a judge now, yes.
Yeah.
And but I played Division I sports, so of course when I got into the world of becoming a prosecutor, it was always weird to me. And I used to always say that, I'm like, don't call it winning. This is not a game, because I played semi-professional games, and this is when you're dealing with someone's life, even if they're going to be incarcerated for 1 to 2 days, that's not a game. So what I usually do is, I'm a proud graduate of Thurgood Marshall School of Law at TSU. If I mentor a lot of the young ladies and young men that go to school there. So if I find somebody of good character that is not a follower, and that's the thing, we need people that are independent people, independent thinkers, and not sheeple. We have a lot of sheeple. So they're like sheep that go with the crowd, and they'll go with whatever's popular and go with whatever's cool, no matter what their complexion is. They can be black, white, Hispanic, they can look like us, not look like us. If they are a follower, they are going to follow the lead of everybody else that's in that organization. It's a very cliquish type organization. But again, if I see individuals who remind me of myself that are not afraid to stand up on their own 2 feet, I always encourage them. I say, hey, they can use people like you. You don't have to stay forever. You can help change people's lives, get in, work that, give back to the community, and get out and do what you're going to do.
So action speaks louder than words, in short.
Yes.
So how do we flip this script? Like right now, prosecutors have a range of punishments that they can give to people that have been convicted of crimes, or were not even convicted, but judges have that power, but prosecutors have a range of punishments that they can suggest, and crimes that they can pursue on different levels. They can decide, well, we're going to make this a class A, B, C, or or first degree, second degree, third degree, whatever. They have a lot of these people have a lot of latitude.
Yes.
So how do we know that the system is, first and foremost, we understand that it's stacked against us. We know that it's rigged.
Right.
How do we dismantle it? How do we unrig it?
Yeah. I think it's going to be with a change in leadership. Like I said, you have to know who the players are, how do the pieces of the puzzle work. My thing is, even a master this thing called life, even your everyday life, whoever, all the people out here watching, the fact that you're tuned in lets me know that you are seeking knowledge, you're seeking information. So, again, typically I always think about it like this: a judge is more like a referee. A lot of people will go with what they see on TV, thinking that the judge is the one who decides what the ultimate punishment is. That's not true. The judge is typically like a referee between the defense attorney and the prosecutor. The prosecutor, who is also known as the assistant district attorney, and those are hired positions that are governed by the elected official, who is the district attorney or top cop or prosecutor. They are the ones who come in and decide what to charge people with. So the moment a police officer arrests somebody and runs down the facts of what happened, they'll say, hey, XYZ happened this evening, and will you accept the charge? And the prosecutor will then determine what charge that fits, and they move forward with that charge. And each, like you said, Willie, each charge comes with a certain set of punishment range. So you'll have certain people that may be charged with a misdemeanor, which you'll get nothing more, at the the most you can get is up to 1 year in prison, or 1 year in jail. And then for felonies, you're looking at anything from more than 1 year in jail all the way up to the death penalty. So, the prosecutors, when you think about prosecutors, I want you to think about the most powerful and the most important people in changing our criminal justice system. And they're the most overlooked and the least talked about, but have the most power. And when I say the most power, I mean, these are people that you've never seen, you don't typically deal with. A lot of them, they look nothing like us. I always tell people we make up, we're 13% of the population is as Black people, but we make up disproportionately over 50% of the jail population across the country. So here in Houston, same thing. Harris County, Black people make up more than 50% of the jail population, but 75% or more of the people that are prosecutors are actually white, and typically white males. So, it's going to take an intentional leadership that's going to go out there, recruit the proper individuals with the proper characteristics. It's not even so much, obviously you want to make sure attorneys know how to practice the law, but it's applying a human emotion, a balance, to the people that they're governing over. So know who your district attorneys are, know who your police chiefs are, know if they're appointed or elected. If you have an issue or you can't find the answer, Google is great. Tune into Willie D. He always has informative information talking about it. Ask questions in the comment section. But if you don't know, you cannot be afraid to ask. find out there's always a way for you to have some sort of power or have your voice heard. And what I did, I didn't wait. I just said, okay, I'll just run for the top position and we'll change this thing from the inside out. But yeah, so.
Yeah, so let's talk about this Klan jury. I mean, they call it the grand jury, but I call it the Klan jury because they don't look like us either.
Right.
What is the typical makeup or ethnicity makeup of the jury, the grand jury?
So the grand jury, number one, it's typically people who are either retired, have longer periods of time to be off of work, so may get paid more, have higher salaries. They're coming in. They're typically white individuals. You see very few minorities that are on the grand jury. Historically, we've seen a lot of people who have been friends with the past judges, at least here in Harris County, that we voted out. And they would get these like prime positions because it would be like a 6-month to a year stint where they would sit on the grand jury. They'd get an excuse from work, and then they would be paid to sit there. And all they do is you literally sit in a room. The prosecutors come in, defense attorneys cannot be present. The witnesses or the person who's charged cannot be present. There is absolutely no recording of what is said inside of the grand jury. So as a prosecutor, I used to go in there. Nobody knows what I would talk about. I would present my case and say, hey, this is what happened, XYZ. They say, okay, can you step out for 5 minutes? By the time I come back in, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, okay, your case is indicted. I could literally go in there and be like, this is an awful case. We need to go ahead and get rid of this, but this is something I have to go through the process.
Right.
Come back in there. They'd be like, oh, we no billed your case, which no bill is a dismissal. So.
Right. That's a cold-blooded game. And this is what I'm telling people before it can even get to a jury or whatever, the grand jury sees it, and the grand jury, first and foremost, it starts with the prosecutor. The prosecutor decides, I don't like this. I ain't gonna do nothing about it. I think I want to indict. I want an indictment. So they go in and they go into a favorable room of people who trust them, who trust everything that they say, because they're looking at it like, this is the person, this prosecutor is protecting us. And we've been deputized to assist the prosecutor in bringing down the bad guys. And so when you present the evidence to them, they feel like, well, you've done this research and you've already done all the homework for them. And so if you say indictment, it should be an indictment. The only time that I see prosecutors, well, most of the time when prosecutors don't get that indictment when they go in front of the jury, is when they're not really looking for the indictment, because oftentimes they'll put something in front of the grand jury that they don't really want in front of the grand jury, just to say they took the step because they've been pressured, or they know that it's a high profile case. So we got to at least say, okay, we put it in front of the grand jury. It ain't on me no more. The grand jury said don't indict, not me. I'll put the evidence in front of them, and they said no. So that whole system, this grand jury, this Klan jury, it needs to be dismantled, because it is just as biased as the rest. It's just totally rigged. And so when you see these cases of all of these Black people and Hispanic people in court, and you see them in jail and all of this stuff, you wonder, like, well, if you're not a critical thinker, if you're kind of slow up top, you would just assume that, well, they must be committing all the crimes. But these people are going like, you know what, based on this, I'm gonna let this slide. We're gonna get him, let this slide. We're gonna get him, let that one slide, let that one slide. Let's get him, get her. You go into the courtrooms, and the last time I went to court on a traffic ticket a few months back, and I swear to God, I literally counted. I counted 100, and it was like 18 people. All of them were Black and Hispanic. It was about 60% Hispanic, 40% Black, and there were no white people in the entire courtroom. Where there was a few, that was a couple of maybe people like, that was like maybe one Asian, and then like one or two Persian people, and then everybody else was Black and Hispanic. And then at the very end of the day, before I left out, one white dude walked in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a direct result of profiling, because we know that white people speed, white people drive with no license, white people make illegal turns, drive on the wrong side of the street, smoke weed, drink and drive. But where are these people in the courtroom? Like, you don't see them in the courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you're saying that you saw in the Justice of the Peace Courts, which typically handle the traffic tickets and Class C misdemeanors. It's the same thing when you go to misdemeanor courts, the same thing when you go to felony court. It's the exact same population breakdown. And it's not that white people are not committing crimes, because even if we go look at the statistics, which I have all the statistics, and disproportionately white people take more drugs, sell more drugs, use marijuana at the exact same rate that Black and Hispanic people do. It's that we are disproportionately over policed and over prosecuted. So, you know, we have this system of people who are imperfect and biased, that are essentially running the most powerful criminal justice system essentially in the world, in each state. And then we turn around and expect it to be fair. It's not going to be fair until we get more educated on how the system runs and how to get these people out of these positions and get people who are honest and unbiased into those specific roles. But yeah, it's the same exact thing. And I'm not saying this from something I think I know or something I've read. I have read it, but as a prosecutor, I live this every single day. I've worked in the Justice of the Peace Courts with traffic tickets. I've been in the Justice of the Peace Court for a traffic ticket, for traffic tickets. Even, you know, when I left the DA's office, I was there not too long ago, maybe about 3 months ago. Exact same thing. It was about 95% Hispanic, maybe about 5% Black. There were absolutely no white people there. But of course, since I knew the prosecutor that was handling the cases, they let my case go, but they kept us in there for 4 hours. We were there from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock p.m., literally just sitting in the pews. Judge didn't come out, didn't care to. And I'm like, at this point, these people need to ask, is this judge elected? Number one, because he just didn't even come out, wouldn't let us leave. And so many of those people are hourly workers. They can't afford to just take a full day off of work to decide what's going to happen with their traffic ticket, then to come back the next month. So it's a very corrupt system. It's one that is built and stacked against us. And there is no broken criminal justice system. It's working how it's supposed to. And just like Willie said, we literally need to dismantle it and rebuild it. We need to defund it, dismantle it, break it down to its basic level, and literally rebuild it.
Absolutely. Let's go into the comments. Let's see. Trying to get the questions. I'm looking for the questions for audience specifically. Let's see. Wicked is being revealed. The whole world is watching. Hella pigs beat first degree because it's hard. And we're talking about the George Floyd case right now. We have all 4 uncivilized criminals that have been charged now for the murder of George Floyd. Well, actually, one has been charged for murder. The others are aiding and abetting. So because they held him down. We cannot get educated on how the system runs when they keep the knowledge out of public schools. That is not true. The information, you can Google the information now, so you can get educated. You can get educated right now. That's what we're doing right now. Let's see. Second degree murder is 25 years to life.
In Minnesota, it's up to 40 years. So the maximum he's looking at facing Derek Chauvin for that second degree murder is actually 40 years. So it's different from each state.
40 years.
40 years is the
Are you saying 4 or 40?
40, 40.
Okay.
40 is the max in Minnesota.
Okay. That's not bad, but you know, like I hear them saying that he can't be charged for first degree because they don't have enough evidence right now that says he woke up with killing George on his mind. But to me, if you have 8 minutes, you're killing somebody for 8 minutes, at some point for 8 whole minutes and somebody's screaming for their life, begging and pleading, and other people are filming and reminding you that you're killing this person. He's dying, you're killing him. He's dying, you're killing him. You have 8 whole minutes. At some point, that becomes premeditated murder in my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think the nicest way that I can say that is it's a lie. That's a lie. Even in law school, practicing law, having been a prosecutor who tried felony cases involving attempted murder, it can be a split second where if you can articulate or argue certain evidence that the person, even if it was 30 seconds before they actually committed murder of that person or killed that person, if you can show within that 30 minutes before, within that minute before, they had some premeditated thought where they went back, like let's say we have an individual that's walking into their house and my thought is, hey, I'm going to rob this person when they go in the house. I didn't plan on killing them, but I stuck my gun in my waistband. But now I'm like, you know what? I'm about to hide in these bushes 30 seconds before. And I jump out and I just shoot the person. Even though it wouldn't have initially been premeditated murder, the moment I can articulate the facts or show facts that line up with the fact that even for that 30 seconds, 1 minute that I had premeditated that person's murder, you can argue premeditated murder. So that's just not true. I think a lot of times you see people around the country, district attorneys, AGs around the country, and I'm not saying that Keith Ellison's doing a bad job so far, but it's just not true. If that was a civilian, they would have been charged with premeditated murder, and you can definitely argue, just like you said, Willie, 8 minutes is, like I said, if 30 seconds is enough to argue premeditated murder, 8 minutes and 36 seconds is more than enough time to argue that this person had premeditated murder. Even when you look at the video, that officer continues to replace the positioning of his knee on George Floyd's neck. Every time he sees him being able to kind of take a breath or say something, it's like he repositioned it to cut off more of his air. I don't know if people watched it that close, but I know when I was looking, at least I saw that. So it'll be interesting to see if the attorneys for the Floyd family argue something like that.
Right. Oh man. Let's see. It was personal matter. The cop held Floyd about time. She speaks the truth. Pig get to hide behind, stop resisting. Let's go to stop resisting. What's up with this stop resisting? It's like I've seen police officers hitting people like this, and the person is just taking the blows, and they're saying, stop resisting, and or somebody's already been shot. They've already shot somebody, and they're putting handcuffs on them, putting the handcuffs behind their back. The person is limp, and they're stop resisting. Do you have any like proof that there are certain things that police officers are supposed to say that actually gets them off? Or let's say that you don't know specifically that they have things that they're supposed to say, but let me rephrase it. Are there certain words or certain phrases that a police officer can use that actually exonerates them from murder? Say, for instance, stop resisting, I fear for my life.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good question. And the point is, police officers in their role as police officers have what's called qualified immunity. And I guarantee you, we're going to see that come up in the George Floyd case, where this officer is going to say, I was acting within the scope of my duties to protect myself and to protect the community. I thought he was posed a threat, and I was acting with the techniques that I was shown within the police academy. So now what the attorneys for the Floyd family is going to have to do is to show that he was in fact acting beyond the scope of his job, and that those techniques were not in fact trained at the academy. But yeah, you have certain things, and the easiest way for me to call them are like a legal umbrella. Like, these officers know they're not attorneys, but what they do, they're given a small amount of a law. They're given just enough knowledge to make sure that they can protect themselves when they go out on the street. And like you said, they can yell out, "Stop resisting." And when you yell out, "Stop resisting," what that does is it provides facts or evidence. It provides evidence for you to be able to show in court or in a report or in a internal investigation to say, well, I feared for my life. Well, how do we know you fear for your life? They all heard me yell it. He was resisting. She was resisting. I yelled it. So the "stop resisting" gun, you'll see a lot of times where they'll yell, "She's got a gun." If you are ever in a situation where you hear an officer yell, "She's got a gun," I mean, or "He's got a gun," your first antenna should go up. Hey, they're about to submit some type of deadly force on me, or some type of deadly force is going to be unloaded on me. So what I suggest is put your hands wherever a video can see them, or a video camera, record it, whatever you can do to just show like there is no weapon and I don't have access to it if you do believe you see one. But things like that provide evidence and protection from being prosecuted.
Okay, well, I guess it's more of a statement. I'm gonna read this just to clown this fool. Comply with the police. Don't be non-compliant to the police, and hopefully you will live. So I've literally seen hundreds of videos where people were compliant, or people didn't even have a chance to be compliant, and they were just executed by the police, because it goes back to, I thought he had a gun. I feared for my life. How do you know if a person feared for their life or not? Only they know that. Only they know that with actuality. Nobody else can confirm that but them. Right now, I can say, I don't fear for my life right now. And none of you out there listening to me can prove otherwise. Right now, if I say, I fear for my life right now, y'all might be saying, well, why would Willie D be fearing for his life? He's chilling, you know what I'm saying? Like, just sitting down talking in the comfort of his studio, and what is he tripping? What is he talking about? You know, he's in a guarded community and blah, blah, blah. You know, why is he fearing for his life? It's all, that part right there comes, it's not even a matter of perception, I mean, or interpretation. It's strictly how I feel. So to me, that's like an automatic excuse, or automatic a reason to use to get off. If I just say I fear for my life, bam, that's all I gotta say. I'm good. How do you fight that? How do you like dispute that as a prosecutor?
And you said, how do I dispute that as a prosecutor? That if someone says, "Hey, I fear for
my life," how do you counter that?
I mean, really what it is, again, it's evidence. It's evidence-based. So I think a lot of the times it's difficult for people when you're first learning about this stuff to separate feelings versus legal actions. Legal actions are completely different than what we feel. So just like the example that you gave us, Willie, you were like, hey, it's very subjective. I'm the only one that can tell how I feel and whether I fear for my life or whether I don't. But there are certain things that you could do right now. If you're like, I fear for my life, I fear for my life, I think Audie is about to do something to me, even though we're in two completely different spaces and we're not even in the same, vicinity whatsoever. And, but there are certain things that you can say that can be used as evidence. Again, she got a gun. She has a gun, she's pointing it at the camera, and so it's those little trinkets are things that you can use in court to say, well, they yelled out, she's got a gun. She resisted arrest. I yelled out that she resisted arrest. We have 4 other witnesses that can come out up here and testify to what I yelled out. They can testify to the fact that I was very jittery. They can testify to the fact of what I looked. So those are tangible things that they can actually use, even though subjectively, yes, we cannot go in and say, hey, we're going to read his mind for this trial. But what they will do is pick out little pieces of evidence. Witness testimony is evidence. Things that are in writing, evidence. Things that people say, again, that's evidence. So those are the things that are going to be used to either support or dismantle your subjective belief. So again, you got to think a little bit differently than feelings as a normal person and then the law. So again, you have these police officers who are not trained in the law, but they are given pieces of the law, just enough to protect themselves if something like this does happen. So they know to yell out gun. They know to yell out certain terms that when a witness comes back to testify, they say, well, I knew that the officer was scared because that's what they yelled out.
Yeah, wow. So let me give a few shout outs. We got some new members to the channel: Tracy Allen, Kevin Stevens, Jay Tatum, Donald. Actually, Donald is not a new member, but I want to give Donald Smith a shout out, and Jay Tatum. But the new members are Kevin Stevens, Tracy Allen, Miss Dorden, Lavender Water, and California Grown. New members to the WillieDLive channel, fam. Show them some love, reach out, let them know that they are welcome and they are at home when they come to WillieDLive. You dig? I got a question for you. Well, actually, I don't have a question for you. Coffee has a question for you, audience. Okay. And that question is, how come that same I thought or I feared for my life don't work for citizens then?
Right. And so again, remember, I go back, I think so many times we operate in these rose-colored glasses, right? And remember, I am someone who actually worked in the system every single day. I used to live it every day. I would see it. And it's almost unbelievable till you're sitting in court and you're like, they really do this. I challenge you guys, when this whole COVID thing is lifted, go watch a jury trial. Those things are open to the public. You can literally sit in there from the second they bring these, they're called a veneer panel. And those are the members of the possible jury that you have to select from. In felony courts, you typically have about 100 people to make a 12-person jury. Excuse me, you have about 50 to 60 people to make a 12-person jury. And you're literally just asking them whatever questions. Hey, is there anything, that you believe, if, let's say we have a defendant that's Hispanic, we may have a defense attorney who's like, do you have any biases against people that are immigrants? And you'll have people that raise their hand and be like, I think all immigrants kill people. And then you'll have somebody else raise their hand. They're like, well, I don't think they can speak English, so they shouldn't be here anyways. I mean, you literally have people that will say the craziest things. And you're in your mind, you're like, this really exists. But remember, you have these regular people that are coming in with all of these bias, all of these beliefs that the system, that officers are great people. And then we have our people a lot of the times, and I'm going to be honest, when I was a prosecutor, I used to have Black people be like, I just think they're guilty. I'm just trying to get out of here. Jury duty is one of the most important things that you can sit through. So if anybody ever tells you to get off, do not go through it, because it's mostly people that look like you and me that are disproportionately affected. And we need people that are fair, that are willing to stand up. But yeah, you will see and hear some of the craziest things. A lot of those people may get kicked off the jury. And if you don't have enough strikes to get those people off, they stay on the jury. You'll find people that won't answer any questions whatsoever. And so the attorneys have no idea what they're thinking. If they get on the jury panel and they get back there in the decision-making room, now is when a lot of times they'll let loose on whatever nobody knew they were harboring these bias. So it's a very scary thing. You're dealing with regular human beings. But that's one of the biggest things you have to understand, is we are dealing with regular people with the jury panel.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show, but I do want to get a closing from you. How you think this George Floyd case is going to play out now that we have all four killers charged. How do you think this is going to play out?
I can tell you how I think and what we've seen historically and what I hope. I mean, of course, I I hope that all of them are, number one, like you said, Willie, the first thing we need to get past is an indictment. So just because they've been charged and just because they are in custody, if we do not get those past the grand jury, they're going nowhere anyways. Because if the grand jury says, hey, I believe he was acting within the scope of his authority and he did nothing wrong, it's over. It does not go to a regular jury. It's done. So that's the first thing. But let's say we do get past that stage for all four of them, which will be great and is absolutely what they deserve. I hope they bump up the charges for Chauvin. Right now, again, like I said, he's looking at a max of 40 years. They're saying that, it's without the intent to murder George Floyd. And obviously anybody with a brain and two eyes can see he formed that intent 8 minutes and 36 seconds before George Floyd died. And then with the co-defendants, they're looking at the aiding and abetting at a max that they can get is 10 years in prison. That's the max they can get, 10 years. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't know, if you receive 10 years or less, you are actually eligible for parole or probation. So you're actually eligible for to avoid time in prison. So, they might end up getting probation, but what I can hope for is that they all end up doing a significant amount of jail time, that we can make examples out of them finally. And you teach people how to act, you teach people how to treat you. And what we've taught these police officers, that they can do whatever they want. And that's why we continue seeing these videos surface every single day of them beating people and wailing on them for nothing. But we have to teach them, we're going to hold them accountable. Just like Atlanta jumped to it, fired those officers, charged them. We need more of that around the country, here in Harris County, everywhere. And the moment we start holding them accountable, criminally accountable, will be the moment we at least start seeing some real changes. So.
Yeah, that's news I can use. She is Adia Jones actually it's Adia for DA across all platforms. You can go to her website and check her out at adiajones.com. She is the new legal analyst for WillieDLive. So you're going to be hearing a lot more from her. And because we're going to need somebody to help us navigate through all of this madness. Adia, I appreciate you.
Thank you, Willie.
All right, no more talk. So fam, there we are. There you have it. I'll try to catch a few more of your comments and then I'm gonna shut it down. Let's see, please don't fall for the okie doke people. Mark Rowe, I got you, Mark Rowe. Yeah, don't let up. Yeah, I do say keep the protests going. Keep the protests going. Smash the gas. Let's see. Pat Dub is asking for the death penalty. That's reasonable. Jeanette Johnson says nothing is going to change. I disagree. At one point, slaves thought the same thing. And whatever we're going through right now, you better believe they had it worse. So yeah, something will change. Can't put a date on it, but change is gonna come. Rashida Nams, what's up, Rashida? I see you shouting out LaShawn. I haven't seen that. There's LaShawn. What's up, LaShawn? Let's see. An astute African empress. They better not get this wrong. You know, they're experts at getting it wrong. They had it wrong from the jump when they didn't charge him. What's up, Bless Watkins? California grown. Or would that be grown? California grown. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, a couple more. Have a cop ever been charged with first-degree murder when it came to a so-called black man or woman being murdered by the police? That's a good question. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say no in America. Just a wild guess. I could be wrong, but damn. Stone Love, start frying these pigs in the electric chair, and they'll think twice before lynching our people in public. That's good advice. A good suggestion. Okay, so Josh Norris says, much love and respect from Cali OG, Willie D. Absolutely, appreciate you, Josh. B. Wash says, the police department already said they didn't teach that knee technique to the neck. Video don't lie. Can't say he feared for it. We know damn well he didn't fear for his life. He sure was comfortable with George fearing for his life. I mean, he took pleasure. Did you see the look on his face? I don't think I've ever seen anybody that killed somebody so effortlessly, like and so cavalier. Like he was very relaxed. And I've seen people kill people. I've never seen anybody kill somebody that was so unbothered by taking a human being's life. You know, even the killers, even the cold-blooded killers give you some kind of expression, something is in their face that shows you or gives you a telltale sign that something ain't right with their expression, like something is on their mind. You know, you couldn't tell if that dude was just sitting down watching a movie or, in the park observing kids play. I mean, he was just really, really relaxed. While he got his knee on the neck of a man pleading for his life. Rob Carpenter says, Floyd complied and laid there. Yeah, I mean, what they tell you to do, basically, if they attack you, if the police attack you, you have to pretty much take a chance on letting them kill you. Because if you fight back, you're going to jail. Or they're going to shoot you. So they're going to shoot you anyway. They're going to probably kill you anyway. So that's what's going to happen. Shouldn't you have a God-given right, even a legal right, to preserve your own life? Maybe y'all can answer that in the comment section. All right, fam, I'm shutting it down. I appreciate you. thanks for taking the time out to get the information, because that's what we're doing over here, sharing that information. Like I said, I have Audia on the show frequently. She's going to help us navigate through the legal meanings of all of this stuff that's going on. Until next time, fam, no more talk.